Hi, my name is Patrick Viet. I'm a systems engineer, and I'd like to welcome you to a quick intro to Puppet. This presentation is made of two parts. First part is the theory part. We run through a dozen slides, a little over 5 minutes, to give you a theoretical overview of Puppet. Then we go on to a practice part. We run through a 20-something minute screencast, which is, if you don't know, a video of my screen while I talk. I will install Puppet from scratch on 2 servers, then mess around with it. It's easy to reproduce, and you can do it at the same time to build your own experience with Puppet. The goal of this presentation is to give you a better understanding of Puppet theory, give you some real-life experience with Puppet on a simple setup. This combination of theory and practice is what will allow you to actually learn something. Theory alone is just talk, and practice alone doesn't get you very far either. You need both. Okay, let's go to a quick rundown of the content. Part 1, theory, slides and comments. Why use Puppet? Why is Puppet so useful? What is Puppet? I'll talk about it with bullet points, a diagram, and a 5-line configuration example. On to the contents of second part, practice as a screencast. I'll show you a step-by-step basic Puppet install on Amazon EC2. You can also use it with any 2 empty Linux Ubuntu boxes. Amazon is just very practical, which is why I'm using it here. I'll then add some example configuration that you can use right now in your own real-life Puppet setup. I'll purposely make a few mistakes so that you can see what happens when I make them. Who is this video for? First and foremost, for sysadmins who haven't had a chance to use Puppet yet and want to have a quick overview with a real-life example. It's also for anyone who wants to understand Puppet basics. And last but not least, it's also for people who want to figure out if Puppet is a good choice for their organization. This means you might not be the person who's going to install Puppet directly, such as a CTO. Let's make a deal. I want you to get as much value as you can from this video. Just watching it isn't enough. You need experience too. Do the practical part at the same time as I do it. Don't be afraid to use pause and rewind it if I go too fast. Do it. It's actually pretty easy. I made it to be very simple and straightforward. If you don't do the practical part, you really won't learn anything. Just accumulate some more information. Also, please give me some feedback. To make a good video, I need feedback. Tell me what you liked about it, what you didn't like, what you thought was missing, what you thought was there and shouldn't have been. What other stuff would you like to learn about? Tell me. People like my videos because I make them about what they asked for, not about something I imagined may be useful and really isn't useful to anyone else than me. Stay in touch. Subscribe to my YouTube channel or to my mailing list. I'll remind you of all this at the end of the video, just setting some context here. Moving on to the 5-minute theory part with slides and a diagram. Why use Puppet? To save some time, avoid repetitive tasks. This freed time will be usable for more valuable tasks instead. To avoid human errors, we just make them, particularly in long repetitive operations like server install or configuration. We want to use Puppet to document a server setup. A Puppet configuration is literally a description of how you want a server to be. As such, server documentation is a nice secondary effect that just happens on its own. A byproduct. You won't have to do some long, dreadful server deploys anymore. Just bootstrap Puppet on a vanilla system image, and you're all good. As a bonus, Puppet's SSL authentication certificate system is standard, and as such can be used as is by other software. In what context would Puppet make sense? It runs on most common operating systems. Linux, Mac, Windows, BSD. The example here is Linux, but it's not the only option. Whenever you have identical or at least similar servers, it particularly shines in any kind of cloud environment. It's usable even with a single server if you want to easily rebuild it. You really start to see its benefit with 5 or more servers. Another use is to set up developer workstations in a consistent way. If you use it inside of a VirtualBox virtual machine, you can even have something practically identical to production for each developer. If you don't use Puppet or equivalent, you'll lose time, money, and energy. You'll make more mistakes, provoke downtime, then even more downtime, lose money, and hurt your reputation. You won't be able to do more important and interesting things than set servers up. In case of a server problem, rebuilding a new one, or worse, several, will be a huge task, resulting in more bad things, such as more downtime, mistakes. By now I'm sure you see where I'm going with this. Puppet is serious business. Here are a few companies that use Puppet: Oracle, Sun, eBay, Twitter, Match.com, Dig, Nokia, Cisco, Disney, Citrix, JP Morgan, Bank of America. You can just check this URL, it's updated very often and always growing. Behind Puppet, you have investors such as Google, VMware, and Cisco. What is Puppet? It's a software piece that allows automation. You configure a central server and the clients synchronize themselves to it. It's a descriptive system. You decide that a file should be there with some permissions, content, that a software package should be installed, and at each run the system ensures that it ends in the state you have described. How does Puppet work? Now with a diagram. So here you can see the Puppet master that contains some description files called manifests, some files to be distributed to agents, and running a daemon that listens on port 8140. Puppet agents connect, get some manifests, and execute them about every half hour. Here's an example manifest for a single file. So you got a class called toolbox containing a tool. This is Puppet simple.sh. I have it on every one of my servers. It's a pretty nice tool. It just allows to run the Puppet agent manually and see what's happening, like verbose, all that kind of stuff, and through a single command. So you see, we set the ownership, the content. Here it's inline. We can also do it by importing another file. It's just practical for this example. To sum it up, Puppet is a centralized client-server system. Puppet is very awesome, simple to set up. Puppet is now widely used. If you have 5 servers or more, Puppet would be very beneficial. If you have hundreds of servers or more, not having a configuration tool such as Puppet would be crazy. Now moving on to the 20 minutes practical example part. An easy step-by-step screencast. Please do this at the same time as me. Theory and experience are what make you learn something. You just went through the theory part. Now without some light experience, it will be low value. It's easy. Just reproduce what I type, and if you miss something or I went too fast, just press pause or rewind. It takes little time. This is a short presentation. So what are we going to do? We're going to do an install of 2 plain Linux Ubuntu servers on Amazon EC2, an install of a Puppet master and a Puppet agent, write some Puppet example configuration in the form of manifests, mess around with the servers, make some mistakes purposely so you can see how they are handled. Amazon EC2 Linux Ubuntu install. So please create an Amazon Web Service or AWS account. This will cost you running 2 small instances, which is at the time of this video 8 cents an hour, so 16 cents total. You'll need a credit card and an email address to do this. It's only a few clicks. I won't run you through this one. You can do it your own. Just press pause, go on aws.amazon.com and come back here once it's activated. Great. You got your Amazon account activated. Let's log on to console.aws.amazon.com and look at my special effect. Okay, so welcome to the Amazon AWS console. We are now going to go to EC2. Check the region. So here we're on US East. You can choose any other one that's closer to you. US East is just the cheapest. And now we're going to create an SSH key pair to be able to log onto the server. So create. I'm going to call it Puppet. No, let's call it Patrick example. Create. Here we go. So we see we just downloaded it. So you got to keep it because it won't actually be, well, you can't get the private key back any other time. This will allow us to log onto the servers. Next step is to create some security groups because Amazon has a default firewall system. So same, we'll also call it Puppet example security group for Puppet. No VPC. VPC is like a special thing in Amazon. Create. And here we go. So in this security group, we're going to authorize everything from port 22, which is SSH. We're just doing an example here, so let's authorize everything. The instances will be destroyed pretty quickly anyway, so the risk isn't too big. Port 80, because we're going to make a web server. And very important, port 8140, which is Puppet. Let's save. And we're good. We got a security group. Now, next step is to go onto Amazon, onto Ubuntu, Cloud Images, cloud-images.ubuntu.com/precise/current. And we have to check that we have the right availability zone. So here we're in US East. We have to check that we're in the right region. So you see here we're in US East, so I'm going to look for an image that's in US East. I also want a 64-bit instant store. So let's look for that. US East 1. So 64-bit instance, US East 1. That looks pretty good. I'll click on launch. Okay, very good. We'll make 2 of them. Make them small. You see you have the choice between small, high CPU, medium, all that stuff. We have to make a small instance. That's just like the smallest one that still actually works. Just forget about the micro instances. Enter EC2. No preference for availability zone. Continue. Okay, next. Continue. So, choosing the key pair, that's how I'm going to log into it through SSH. Firewall, I'm going to use the Puppet example security group we just created earlier. Review, check it's all good. Seems good. Let's launch. Okay, so now if I click on instances, we'll see them pending. While they're loading, I'm going to name them. So the first one will be Puppet Master. Second one will be Puppet Agent. Okay, let's just wait. It takes like 2-3 minutes. While the instances are loading, let's import the keys. If you're using a Mac or Linux, you don't need to do this. Just use the .pem file as you would use any SSH private key. SSH-i file.pem ubuntu at EC2 blah 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 hostname. I'm using Windows right now, so for me and all the people also using this as a workstation, you must import the key. This is puttygen, the putty key generator. I'm going to click on import, then save as, and call it Patrick example.ppk, putty private key. So here it is, save private key. No passphrase, this is just an example, and we'll call it Patrick example.ppk. Putty private key. Done. Our Amazon EC2 instances are now loaded. Let's go back to the console. I'm going to copy this. Copy. And in SSH, use my Patrick example key. And we're good. Yes. Ubuntu. Default login on Amazon. And we're good. I'm going to run the second one on the agent. Copy paste this. And I got the two windows on. So the left is the Puppet master, the right is the Puppet agent. We're going to give them some names because what's the way Puppet works, it uses the host names. So sudo hostname puppet master.example.org, and here sudo host name puppet agent.example.org. Now we're going to have to connect to the Puppet master from the agent, so we'll just add its IP address in the host file. Since they're in the same zone, everything, we can use the private one. Here we go. So I'll go root. This message is normal, it's just because it isn't in the host file, but we can just ignore it for this presentation. Echo IP address puppet master.example.org in etc hosts. Great. So now I'm going to install, we'll first do an apt-get update. Get everything up to date. Do it on the other one. apt-get update. Now I can install the Puppet master. And on the other one, install just the regular Puppet. Okay, so we're going to edit the Puppet config on the client, so it could connect to the right master. I usually use VI, but well, most people will have an easier time using Nano. To save, you just do Control X, and it will ask you if you want to save it. It's pretty simple. So here I put server. Server is Puppet master.example.org. Control X, Y, and enter. We're good? Okay, so now we can run the agent for the first time. I'll put a couple options. No demonize means we get everything in the foreground. We run it only one time, and we'll be verbose. It's going to tell us what it's doing. Okay, so here it did a request to the master, and the master must approve it. We type puppet cert list, and here's the request from puppet-agent.example.org. Puppet cert sign, and now if we rerun it, it's all happy. Now that we have them connected, we are going to make some example Puppet configuration. So remember in the beginning I showed you a Puppet simple.sh thing? Well, we're going to make it. So edit site.pp, which is the default file, red. Class toolbox. Okay. Make that file /usr, usr local sbin puppet simple.sh. Owner is root, group is root, mode is 0755. The content is /bang bin sh bin sh puppet agent one time, no demonize, verbose, and the little $1 so if we want to add an extra thing. As a practice, I put a comma at the end. That way, if I add a line, I don't have to add that extra comma, and it's also nicer, like in SVN or Git, if you put your Puppet things in there, which I recommend. You see the diff on the right line and not on the one that you didn't change. Okay, so we created a class. Now we'll assign it to our example Puppet agent. Include toolbox. Control X, save. Okay, let's see how that went. So see, we got the Puppet file created. Now I can just run Puppet simple. Nothing happened because the file's already there. And if I change the contents of the file or its permissions or something, it's going to correct them. Like chmod 0123 of this file. I rerun Puppet. Well, I can't run this command because I just broke it. So all right, here we go. So see, it put the permissions right. So first example, done. And now on to a slightly more complex example. We're going to install Apache with a single site configuration and set it up through Puppet. We are going to create a subdirectory. So see here we have site.pp, classes. And that way, in site.pp, I can just import every file in that directory. I'd like to be able to do it in the current directory, but it has to be in a subdirectory, because otherwise it's going to say, oh, I can't include myself, that kind of stuff. Great, so let's create an apache.pp class file. So class Apache. We are going to install the package called Apache 2 npm pre-fork. That's the name under Ubuntu and Debian. Ensure it's installed. What this does is make sure that a package is there. And if it's not there, it installs it. If it is there, it does nothing. So I'll show you. I'll include the Apache package, well, Apache class I just set up. Run Puppet. It's a little bit longer. And done. So here we have Apache installed. Now if we look, we'll see all this installed. So if I rerun Puppet, nothing happens. But if I remove the package, rerun, it reinstalls it. Okay, so now let's create a class for a website. It's going to contain a definition for a file that configures Apache with a trigger to restart Apache when the file changes. So we'll call it mysite.example.org. Class mysite. File /etc/apache2/sites enabled /my site. Owner is, as usual, root. Group root. Mode 0644. As content, I'll actually import it through the Puppet file server. So files /my site apache.conf and create a file in there. Okay, and another thing I'll do is make it include the Apache package. Okay, I save, and now if I edit the site.pp, what I can do is have this just include my site, and it will recurse through the dependency to resolve it. Done. So let's execute our Puppet client again. Here you see I made a mistake. Instead of doing source, I did content. So its content is actually weird thing, like that. Bam. So if I actually change it to what I originally wanted to do, which is not content but source, now we're going to get an error. Puppet simple. Here we go. So I'll create the file, Puppet, files, my site, files, my site apache.conf. So we'll make it super basic, just a single virtual host, port 80, server name mysite.example.org, document root, home, mysite.example.org. Simple thing. virtual host. Done. So here, it should work. It won't. When Puppet started up, it has the file server. That does have that path. But because it was created after Puppet started, it actually was ignored. Var log syslog. Here we go. Removing mount files, etc. Puppet files does not exist or is not a directory. So to have it work, I have to restart the service. And now, ooh, surprise, still not working. So we actually have to put the permissions in the file server.conf. Allow anyone. Basically, though, it only allows some clients that do have a certificate, so it's not that big a risk. And working. Here we see it changed the file, it put it in, but Apache doesn't really know about it because we haven't restarted the Apache server. So we're going to put a trigger in. Let's edit the manifests class apache.pp. We're going to define a service, Apache 2. Ensure it's running. It has a status, so we can ensure it's running. True. Has restart. True. Yeah. If I, for example, stop Apache and I run Puppet, Puppet is actually going to restart it because it sees it's not running. Now I can put a trigger, which is pretty simple. In my site, for that file, here we go, notify the service called Apache 2. I'm going to delete this, run. So here you can see that it put the file back, and then as a trigger, triggered refresh from one event. So we see it actually restarted Apache. And we're not finished. This is still incomplete. Now let's define a directory. So home www mysite.example.org. So in Unix, as you probably know, a directory is a type of a file. So that's why we define them in the same way. And this home www.mysite corresponds to the virtual host definition. Cat file, my site. See, it's the same one, my site example. So here it should create it. Not going to work. Why? Because home www doesn't exist. If you look at what's in home, you'll see nothing. So it's not recursive. What I have to do is re-edit it and create the top file. The order doesn't really matter. For files, it's going to still detect the dependency on its own. So I copy paste this. Here we go. Run again. Now, next step, let's create a file and see if the vhost actually works. I will echo some random text into home, my site, index.html. So from here, if I do get the IP address, which is this, I should be able to do curl dash. I still have to call the proper host. So mysite.example.org, HTTP, and IP address. It works. And this concludes the practical example with purposefully made mistakes. Please give me some feedback. To make a good video, I need feedback. Tell me what you liked about it, what you didn't like, what you thought was missing, what you thought was there and shouldn't have been. What other stuff would you like to learn about? Tell me. People like my videos because I make them about what they ask for, not about something I imagine may be useful and really isn't useful to anyone else than me. Last, stay in touch. Subscribe to my YouTube channel or subscribe to my mailing list. I'll just send a few updates like for the new videos. Thank you.